I'm letting myself in, just a FYI. I'm excited. There's people.
Yeah. All right. I feel like, Aminta, we should be, yeah, we can definitely start. I can start letting folks in too. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. Thank you all so much for being on time. We're going to give folks a few minutes before we get started, but thank you all again for joining.
Still on mute. Hi.
Hi, welcome. Thanks so much for joining.
Okay, thank you.
Give it another minute and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Nirmala Singh, and I'm a founding board member of South Korean Women's March. Just want to say thank you all so much for joining us tonight for our college financing workshop. So this is part of our college prep series, and I'm happy to see some familiar names and faces. So welcome back. And for folks that are new to our organization, I'll just tell you a little bit about South Korean Women's March. So we were actually founded a little over a year ago during the height of the pandemic. And our mission really is to help curb gender-based violence here in South Queens and really foster empowerment between women and gender nonconforming folks here in this community. So this workshop, as I said, is part of our kind of college prep series that began in the fall. So some folks have attended our applications workshop and some of the other ones. And today we'll be talking a little bit about college finances. And Monica will be our facilitator for tonight. So before I throw it over to Monica, I did want to put a disclaimer that we are streaming this workshop live on Facebook, and the video will also be available to all of our attendees on our YouTube channel as well. There was some folks that wanted to attend, but obviously couldn't. So just wanted to make sure that we're providing the space for everyone. This is an interactive workshop as well. So at any point, if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute or you can use the chat box. We also have designated time at the end of the workshop for question and for Q&A. But at any point, if there's something that sticks out to you or you have a question about something, please feel free to just let Monica or myself know. Yeah, and I'll throw it to Monica right now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Monica. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. As Nirmala just shared, I am a South Queens Women's March member. I'm excited to be here. Just one quick thing about me is I've worked with the child welfare and just education system for probably 6 to 7 years at this point. And so that's a little bit about me and why I felt I could share this with y'all tonight. And so all I want to see is money for college, right? Let's get started. We know, as kind of generic and general knowledge, college is super expensive, right? And so we want to know, what is financial aid? So getting right into it, we're going to talk about different sources and types of financial aid. We're going to talk a little bit about the process of applying to financial aid, and we're going to talk about scholarships and things of those sorts and loans, right? And so how does your typical US family pay for college, right? So some people use money from relatives and friends, right? Crowdsourcing with families and relatives and friends. 16% of students borrow money. 6% of parents borrow money. 11% of student income and savings. 32% of parent income and savings, and then 30% grants and scholarships, right? And so the source of this chart is actually Sallie Mae, and we'll talk about Sallie Mae in a minute, but basically they are a really, really big source of college funding, of student loan funding, right? And so this is from around 2015, so relatively recent data, right? What is financial aid? Money to help pay for educational costs. Don't assume you're not eligible for financial aid. You've got to apply, right? This is money to help pay for college. The different types of financial aid, right? So there's going to be grants, and grants are usually going to be need or merit-based, similar to scholarships, need or merit-based. Then there's going to be loans where you are borrowing money and you're going to have to pay it back. Then there's federal work study and internships and fellowships, right? And so I'm going to break those down a little bit more. Federal is going to be grants like Pell Grant or the Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. That is federal money, right? So that is money coming out of Washington, DC, for you, for funding for college. Then there's state. So I included a hyperlink, and I'm happy to share those links with anyone shall they need them. But this is New York State's higher education student, I'm blanking out on the C, all right, but it's higher education funding, higher education for information on how to pay for college. In New York State, at a state level, out of Albany, will provide TAP and Excelsior Scholarship. And the Excelsior Scholarship is going to be for New York residents who are likely going to stay in New York after, or it turns into a loan, right? Something around that. And then colleges and universities, right? We know colleges and universities have lots of money, and we know colleges and universities themselves can provide different tuition reimbursements or scholarships or just waivers, right? Where a student is not required to pay full tuition to attend this school based on different things, right? And it could be merit, it could be need, or it could be an extracurricular. So student loans and parent loans, this is money that you will have to pay back, right? Federal direct student loans come again out of Washington. And this is money that you will ask for after Washington has already given you your grant money, your free money, right? Your free, don't have to pay back money is number one. And then this is your direct loans, which is money number two, which is what you'll have to pay back. Once you have kind of gone through those various options, looked at what the numbers are, you can also do private loans. So private loans are going to be from banks or other lenders, for example, Sallie Mae, Sophie, Citizens United or Citizens Bank, right? Those are some of the funders we'll talk about. Federal work study, right? So one of the things that comes with those grants, that comes with that money that the federal government is able to give you is federal work study. And so this is going to be a job, right? It's basically a job, very comparable, except the money that you're receiving, most of it is going to your tuition, right? So they're saying you are going to be assigned to be the administrative assistant for this college department, or you're going to be assigned to the library of the college, or you're going to be assigned to this department of the college to do some work hours. And your work study is going to be contributing to your tuition assistance. An RA could potentially be one example. It just depends on the school, right? So if the school offers that as one of the work study positions, absolutely an RA could be a work study position, or it might be a college position where it's not federal money, it's the college's money that they're giving you, right? An RA is oh my gosh, residential, I'm blanking out on the A, but the person that works at the dorms, right? Assistant, thank you. The residential assistant. So you are kind of helping the college manage the dorms, right? You're kind of a leader, a leading person in the dorms for the college. So that's an RA. Thank you for those questions. Okay. And then off campus. Off campus is going to be maybe your library, right? Your neighborhood library, a public or any other public agency that is connected to these grants, right? Or a non-for-profit. So non-for-profit organizations are also connected to these grants. They can approve your hours for these grants, and they can be one of the ways that you do your federal work study hours and program, right? Okay, it's a long process. You guys, you have to do it. You have to be super patient and you have to be super diligent. You have to be on top of it. You will get emails. You will get asked for more paperwork. You will get asked to repeat stuff. Please, please, please stay on top of it. These are hard deadlines. You are not going to be able to call these organizations and be like, I know it was due last week, but please, pretty please, they're not gonna, there's no negotiating some of these deadlines, right? If you miss the deadline, you miss the boat, you miss the money, right? So please, please, please make sure that you are really clear on what this process looks like, that you are on top of it, and that you are handing in everything that you need to hand in, right? They're going to ask you for a ton of paperwork. And so step one, submit FAFSA online. Fill it out, read everything that you're filling out, make sure it's all completed, make sure all your information is in there. Make sure you sit with your parents for this. We need your parents involved in FAFSA, right? We need your parents involved in FAFSA. And then once you've gathered all that information, and I'll talk about what information you'll need in a moment, once you gather all this information, your federal processor is going to get your application, right? And so they're going to sit with it, they're going to look at it, they're going to make sure it's all complete, they're going to make sure everything that they need is in there, and if it's not, they're going to come back and they're going to email you or they're going to mail you something, and they're going to ask you and ask you and ask you. And those are hard deadlines, right? You need to be pretty please be on top of it, right? Then you're going to have your student aid report sent to your college, right? So your college is going to receive the information and they're going to give you access to that information about what's going on, right? Most of the time, they're going to keep asking you for more information. Your college will contact you and may need more information and indicates that your FAFSA was received and gives instructions for the next steps. Most of the time, all of us are going to have next steps. It's just the reality of FAFSA, right? So you're going to get right to it. You're going to send them everything else that they could have possibly asked you for, right? Parents are going to send everything that they need. Everyone is going to get their ducks in a row, get all their applications together, send that their way, right? And so your financial aid office is going to process all of it, And this could take sometime between 6 to 12 weeks, depending on the college, depending on whatever else is going on, right? COVID really impacted us. And so things are moving way slower because of COVID, right? But this is kind of somewhat of an idea, right? They still may come back and ask you for more things. It still may not be enough. It still may not be sufficient. So please, please, please stay on top of it until you receive an award letter, right? Until you receive in black and white what FAFSA is giving you. And then depending on the college, may need to go in and accept it, right? That depends on the college, that depends on what was going on. And so please, please don't forget to check your email. Don't forget to check your school website, right? Once you are accepted as a student into a college, you are going to get some kind of login into their system, into their emails, all these different things. And so please stay on top of that so that you can review what is emailed and provided to you and make sure it's all good, right? And then of course, answer emails, return phone calls, all that good stuff. Okay, so where do you do this, right? Where do you need to go to file your FAFSA? You are going to go to www.fafsa.gov, right? This is the only website for FAFSA, right? Start here. This is literally their website. All their information will be on there. Contact info will be on there. Instructions will be on there. Follow all the directions, all the instructions. As of October 1st, anyone who is going to be registering for college can apply for FAFSA using last year's tax information. This is important. This gets so many of my students all the time, no matter how many times I say it. You need your parents' previous tax information, previous tax year, right? So right now, a lot of people are filing their 2020 taxes. You may need your 2020 or your 2020 or your 2019 taxes, depending on when you are submitting for FAFSA, but you need last year's taxes, right? So please, please, please make sure your parents have access to that. You will not have a complete application without it, right? Very, very important. What else do you need? Social Security, your full name. If I am class of 2022, what taxes will I submit? So it depends on when you're submitting. If you're submitting in October, you're probably going to use 2019's taxes, right? But if you're submitting next year, you're going to be using 2020 taxes, right? So it'll depend on when you're submitting. But thank you for that question. You're just going to follow the instructions on FAFSA. They may ask you for both, so have both ready, right? Just the more the better. The more information you have, the better. If you're class of 2022, which means you're a junior right now, right? So probably 2020 and 2020 for your freshman year and 2022 for your sophomore year. Okay. Awesome. And so what else will you need? Your alien registration or permanent resident card or proof of U.S. citizenship. Unfortunately, at this moment, deferred action for childhood arrival students, DACA students, do not qualify for FAFSA funds. Hopefully, right, a law was just passed through the House a few minutes ago, which is opening doors for a potential path to citizenship for deferred action childhood arrival students, for DACA students. And so we'll see what the Senate does with it. But at this point in time, DACA recipients, DACA students that are going into college with a work permit from DACA are unfortunately not eligible for FAFSA funds. Crossing our fingers, that needs to change, right? What else do you need? Driver's license, state ID. Most, right, they said it, last year's income taxes, the year before's income taxes. W-2s, right? Your parents should know what their W-2 is. It is what their job gives them to tell them how much they made. Or your 1099, same thing. It's what your job gives you to tell you what you have made. If they own a business, you will need that business information. You will need how much that business made. You will need income. You will need investments. You will need all of that, right? And then you're also going to need your FSA ID, right? And you can get this at fsaid.ed.gov, right? These are all really important things that you're going to need. So I actually learned this while I was pulling this together. I didn't realize this was the literal math that FAFSA does. And so FAFSA says, what is your cost of attendance? So what is your tuition? What are your fees, right? Your fees could be the student activity fees. Your fees could include the technology fee. Your fees could include other fees that are outside of what you're paying for your classes, but still part of your tuition. 2 examples, I'll repeat them: student activity fee. And so the student activity fee is going to be what funds student government, student clubs. It's going to fund any student activity, right? Any student activity. And then I use technology, right? So that's what's going to fund your technology department, the technology the school has, the computers, the internet, any technology you guys are given, right? Some colleges are giving iPads or laptops. All of that is going to be funded by your technology fee. And so your tuition, your technology fee, your room and board, right? That's part of your cost of attendance, your books and supplies, which are unfortunately really expensive. So just a side note, feel free to use Amazon, feel free to use Chegg, feel free to use textbook.com. Those are all way cheaper ways to get your textbooks. Your personal expenses, food, right? That's a personal expense. That's something you need as a college, everyone needs, right? And then transportation to and from college. So those are all going to be your cost of attendance, all included in the math. Then, what is your expected family contribution? So depending on how much your family is making is where this number is going to come from. So what is your family expected to contribute to your college tuition, right? This is the amount, the money the government expects the student and family to pay. And then when you take your cost minus your contributions, that's how your award is created. The number of your award is created. So here's an example. Let's say your cost is $13,269. Your family, based on their income, is able to contribute $1,500, right? And so what is your financial need to cover the rest of your semester? $11,769. This is your college package. It's the financial aid awards to meet as much of the eligible students' financial needs as possible, right? So your cost of attendance minus what your family's contributing equals financial need and your award money. This aid has conditions, right? You've got to be taking classes for your degree or for your 1-year certificate. You have to pass them, right? You cannot be on academic probation, right? Each college defines, has a number for GPA to define academic probation. It's usually somewhere around the 2, right? 2.3, 2 point something like that. But you cannot be on academic probation and continue to receive federal aid, right? So you need to keep up with your classes, you need to keep up with your grades, you need to keep up with what you're doing, right? You have to complete your classes. You can't drop out. You can have an incomplete. You can't, right? They need to be completed with a good grade. And if we're talking about scholarships, a scholarship may require you to have a particular GPA, right? So it won't be the simple requirement of you can't be on academic probation. It'll be, oh, you need to be an A student. You need to be a B student this entire time to hold this scholarship, right? Think of soccer scholarships or sports scholarships. sports scholarships have a minimum GPA requirement, right? If student athletes fall below that, they are risking their funding as a student athlete, and they could potentially lose their scholarship and lose their team, right? Their team may be removed from the team based on being on academic probation or on low GPA, on GPA that does not uphold the expectation for student athletes, right? And some programs or scholarships may require full-time enrollment, right? So there is full-time students and part-time students. Usually part-time students take 1 to 2 classes or maybe 3, so that might be 1 to 9 credits. Usually above 9 credits, so 12 to 15 would be full-time, right? And so you need to know, do I need to be a full-time student, or is it my reality that I have to work through college, which is perfectly fine. A lot of us do it. I did it, right? But does that mean I have a full-time job and go to college full-time? Is that sustainable? Can I maintain that? Can I keep up my grades doing that? Because that's not an easy thing to do, right? It's going to require time management. It's going to require really, really hard work. It's going to require really, really, really good time management and focus and motivation and getting your ducks in a row, right? And so again, may require full-time enrollment. So you just have to ask and make sure. You need FAFSA of some other things. FAFSA is not just this one big thing. There are other doors that open, right? Your Pell Grant comes from FAFSA. Your federal supplemental education opportunity grants come from FAFSA. There may be state grants that use FAFSA to give you a state grant, and federal loans. In order for you to be considered for federal loans, you've got to make it through the FAFSA process, complete your FAFSA, submit all of that, have that be done, cleared, used up all that money, and then you're eligible to start applying to federal student loans, right? So please, 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 moral of the story, FAFSA is really important. Please, 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 please complete it, right? So what happens if FAFSA is not enough, right? I mentioned federal loans. There are 2 types of federal loans, subsidized and unsubsidized. So what is the difference? A loan has interest. Interest is how much you are going to pay for having borrowed that money. So if I give you $1,000 and I tell you your interest rate is 10%, 10% of 1,000 is 100. So you're paying me $100 in interest and you're paying me your original $1,000 loan. So what's important about this is that in subsidized, the federal government pays for the student's interest while they are in school and while that loan is in deferment, right? And deferment just means that you're not able or you're not making payments at that moment for a really particular reason that you've discussed with your lender, and it is all approved, right? Don't just ignore federal loan payment. Don't ignore payments in general, right? But deferment means that you have spoken to your lender. You have told them, hey, this is the reason I can't pay, or I want to keep extending it, or I'm still in school, right? Those are some of the reasons. The big one is that you're still in school, right? That's how you're going to defer, by still being in school. But the federal government pays for your interest while that is all happening, right? So you do not have to worry about those $100 because the government is paying for those $100 until you pick up the tab, right? Now, unsubsidized, you pay all the interest, right? So it's the interest is growing and growing and growing while you are in school, and you will pay it all back once you start your payment plan after you graduate and have started working, right? So of course, subsidized are the preferred. They are less money, and federal loans in general tend to have way lower interest rates, right? So instead of me saying, oh, you got to pay me 10%. Maybe the federal government is, you know what? Our rate right now is 2.5%, right? That's much lower than my 10%. So of course you got to go with the federal student loan if you are eligible and able to take it, right? And so that's really important. Those are our two types of loans: subsidized, unsubsidized. Now, private, right? So private means non-governmental. Non-governmental, right? And so you've got Sally Mae. I feel like that's the common name, right? We all hear we're paying Sally Mae. You've got Sophie, that's another lender, Ernest, a third, Accent, a fourth, right? So this is a list of different private lenders that will give you money for school, right? Unfortunately, because they're private, they can set their own interest rates, and they're going to look at credit much more than the federal government is looking at credit, right? And credit is just your ability to manage debt, and there is a number attached to your credit score, right? So your credit score is going to fluctuate what you're interested in. So if you and your parents have good credit score, your interest rate are going to be lower, because a good credit score means that you and your parents are able to manage money and manage debt well. If if there's lacking stuff in your credit score and your credit score is lower, your interest rates are going to be higher, right? And so that's really important to know, that when you're taking out a loan, any kind of loan, right? Not just for student loans, but for any loan, mortgage, credit cards, all of those things, you're going to look at your credit, and it's going to be really important that you take care of that, and you take care of your credit in order to get private loans, right? And if possible, and if reasonable, and if appropriate for your situation and your finances, do your best to first include or get through, right? Take all the juice out of grants, scholarships, and federal loans and federal funding before going to the private sector, before going to private loans, right? Scholarships, free money, free money, right? This is going to be there are millions and millions and millions for scholarships for literally anything and everything. Left-handed, I'm from this part of the world, I am a woman, I'm an immigrant, I am a dancer, I am, right? There's millions of reasons for scholarships. And so some of the categories are going to be, maybe because you're a psych major, there's a psych major scholarship. Maybe you have a really high GPA, you're an honor student, you're killing it with your grades, they're like all A's, you're a 4.0 average, right? So there's your academic merit GPA scholarships. Your extracurriculars, I received scholarships based on volunteer work that I did, right? My volunteer work turned into a stipend. And so extracurricular activities are always financial need, right? Many of our families don't come from a lot of wealth. Many of our families are immigrant families that are working really hard for their money. And so there are financial needs scholarships for us out there, right? And personal barriers, right? So I have this experience, I've lived through this situation, my parents have lived through this situation, I am a product of this situation, right? This is my personal barrier, this is the obstacle I have gotten through. Please fund me based on that obstacle. There is money out there, right? Where do you look for it? Guys, the internet. The internet is our best friend. Look at your college financial aid website. Look at scholarships.com. Look at collegeboard.org. Look at the New York Gov/Pay for College website, right? This is the higher education website I mentioned earlier. There is tons and tons and tons of money. And ask your high school or college counselor. Y'all, I remember when I was in college, they would literally tell us, no one has applied to the scholarship, apply, and you're like 90% going to get it unless someone else applies to it, right? People weren't applying to the college scholarships. And don't get me wrong, they weren't thousands, maybe they were $500 or $1,000, but that was still money that was going to my tuition that now I didn't have to worry about, right? And of course, again, your college admissions or financial aid office. You can also talk to your honors program. You could also talk to places like that. Is there a limit to how many scholarships you can apply to? The only limit is going to be how much time you have and whether they connect to each other. So maybe there's a limit from McDonald's. McDonald's can only give you one scholarship, but maybe you can go to McDonald's and then you could go to this other organization that has money and then this fourth organization that has money. So probably not, so long as there isn't something written that you can't receive those two scholarships at the same time, right? There should not be a limit unless you cannot receive them at the same time or can receive both of them. Otherwise, apply, right? That's a great question. So you want to talk to all your financial aid folks, you want to talk to Bursar, you want to talk to your tuition person at college to see what they know. Make a list, right? Make a list to make sure you know your deadlines, to make sure, oh, this one needs an essay, this one doesn't need an essay. Get yourself organized, right? So if your goal is to apply to 5 scholarships, make 5 lines, name number 1, name number 2, name number 3, this is when they're due, and this is what I need for it, right? And so this is out of scholarship.com. There is top 10 student resources that you guys can look at scholarship.com. But keep track and make sure you get everything in. Meet all your deadlines. Please, please, please know when things are due. Learn to be timely, learn to be efficient, and learn to submit on time. Follow the instructions, right? If they're saying this needs to be 1,000 words, make sure it meets that 1,000 word limit. Save a copy. Save a copy of your scholarship application, whether that's on your computer and you save it as a PDF or as a Word document, whether that's in your email, whether that's you printed it, however you want, but please keep your own copy of your work and of your application. Type the application, right? Please, 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 it's much neater, it's much cleaner, please type. And completely fill it out. Please do not leave blanks. Please do not leave gaps. Please do not ignore that it says, this is what we need, right? Make sure you got everything in there. These are college funding programs, right? So briefly, these are all really important, prestigious, fancy schmancy, right? Programs that folks and students can do while in school, right? The Ronald E. McNair program is going to do research. So you're going to create knowledge. You're going to create a survey or a case study, or you're going to read and pull from a literature, right? It's all research-based, research program. This is federally funded, and when I tell you it opens about 30,000 doors, I'm not exaggerating, right? There are literally master's programs that say, hey, were you a Ronald E. McNair program scholar? Cool, you don't have to pay for our application, and things like that, right? So there is a lot of prestige and fanciness behind some of these names. Your school's honors program, right? I know the school that I went to, our honors program fully funded us, gave us a laptop, and gave us money for events every year, every semester, right? So we were living a good life as honor students. Your Fulbright US student program, Fulbright, you go abroad, you get to teach English abroad, and you get funded. Gilman International Scholarships Program, the HEOP or the EOP, one is for public schools, one is for private schools. The Rhodes Scholarships. Y'all, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton were Rhodes Scholars, right? Again, this is top-notch stuff. Your Soros Fellowship for New Americans, if anyone is interested in this one, it is for immigrants, right? First generation college students in the US. Marshall Scholarship, Truman Scholarship, the Woodrow Winston National Fellowship Foundation, right? These are all ways to get money while in school, right? And so you need to find out, you need to talk to folks in your school. Hey, what programs do you know? Hey, what can I apply to? Hey, how did you get that money? Can I also do it? Right? Now, build a net that works so that you can get your education funded. All right, y'all. Any questions? Any comments? Any curiosities? This is our Q&A section. Right, so SORAS is for immigrant students, right? Yes, correct. Like if your parent, yes, if you were born here, but your parents are from abroad, there is a SORAS scholarship for you of some kind. Yes, it is for immigrants. I love this question. What can I do as a junior to prepare for the process in the fall? So get ready for college applications. Start your essay, start your school list. Look at what majors you're interested in doing. Look at what schools you want to go to and start asking those schools, what do you have? Why should I pick your school, right? I'm this really awesome student. I'm really interested in your school. Tell me about it. Tell me why I would want to go to your school, right? Super friendly, super gentle question, right? What's cool about your, what do you have for me, right? And if they say, yeah, so we have all these student government, we have clubs, great, right? So you take all that information in, and that should be part of how you decide what schools you apply to. You should also get your paperwork ready for FAFSA, because remember, October, right? So you should start thinking about scholarships. So just in general, the process should be your essay, your school list, how you're going to fund your school, right? So what are parents paying for a part of it? Do you need scholarships, FAFSA? And then when you submit and start waiting for acceptances, you weigh all of that little by little. You list all your pros and cons for each school you got accepted to, and slowly but surely you decide. But you should start to make your school list and your tests, right? If you guys are going to be taking the ACT, SAT in junior year, you need to work on that. Make sure you've practiced, make sure you're ready for those exams.
Eva, sorry.
So there's another question. So do you think I should pick my major depending on which school I go to, or should I choose the same major for all the schools I apply? Wow, these are amazing questions. So what I would do is I would go to the school website, both school websites, and see what programs they have and then compare. If I'm looking at NYU and I'm looking at Hunter College and they both have a science program, I want to look at what classes am I taking in each of these programs and do they sound exciting, right? Because if maybe I really like the Hunter science program, but in NYU, I like their biology program, then maybe I apply to their biology program for NYU. So I would compare what classes I would be taking for each of the programs to then pick which programs I'm applying to. And then how early should you start this process? I love it. So I think in sophomore year, you should be getting involved in high school. You should be doing clubs. You should be doing volunteer. You should be doing extracurriculars. In junior year, you should be preparing all of your application stuff. And then in senior year is when you submit, right? My parents are immigrants and lack knowledge about college process, and since they won't be much help, are there any resources? Always resources. Always ask anyone in your community who has done this. You can ask our community of South Queens Women March. Most of us, if not basically all of us, have done this, and a lot of us just like you on our own, right? You are not alone. You are not, unfortunately, the first or the last who is in this kind of boat of parents aren't going to be as helpful as we wish they could be. So you could look at organizations in the community. You could look at folks older that are older than you in your community that you trust and have gone to college. You can look at other non-for-profits. that have info sessions. And actually we, South Queens Women's March, are doing another one of these on, what do we want to call it, like your first year of college, what you should know going into college, right? So look at your elders, right? Quote unquote elders, because we're not that much older than you guys. But those are ways that you can get knowledge and information that, and your college counselors in high school. Will the requirements change in the coming years for scholarships? They might. So for some, they might. I feel like each scholarship will do its own thing on their requirements, right? So some scholarships might only require a 2.5 GPA. Maybe some scholarships require a 3-point GPA. Maybe some require a 3.5, right? And so you just have to keep yourself in the know about what that particular scholarship is asking of you and whether you meet that or you don't. And if you don't, that's okay. There's literally tons of others. Ooh, is there an appeal process if you don't get enough financial aid? Yes, there is. You can appeal. You can send in more documentation. You can ask for it to be reconsidered, and how much they'll budge, TBD, right? It'll still be their decision at the end. But yes, there is an appeal process. I love these. You guys are on a roll. Any more, y'all? We've got a couple of more minutes. I'm happy to answer anyone else's questions. This is $1 million question.
Yeah, you should take full advantage of Monica because she has a wealth of knowledge and lots to share.
Are paying back student loan difficult? That is the $1 million question. It depends on how you want to go about it, right? There's people that I know who are college professors and have said to themselves, I am going to pay the bare minimum just to keep them happy. And as long as they're happy, I don't care, right? That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is, no, I'm going to bust my butt working really, really hard, budgeting really, really smartly, and I'm going to get rid of this debt in 3 years, right? And so it will just depend on what your budget looks like, what your job looks like, and what choice you want to make, right? I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with either choice. I think it's going to be about what you want to do with your money and the decisions that you want to make with your family or whoever you are budgeting with, right? If it's because you got married in the future and now you have a husband to think about, right? And you guys are budgeting together, or if it's, hey, it's me and my parents, or if it's, hey, it's literally just me and I'm on my own in New York City, right? As long as they're happy, you'll be okay, right? As long as you're paying the bare minimum, and there is a minimum payment, they'll tell you what that is, right? I don't think we need to feel that pressured to pay these off, right? I think we create that. I think we have created this like intense need to be like, I'm debt free. Like, no, it's okay. It's a student loan. Like basically anyone with a master's has student loans, right? So many of us at a BA level have student loans, right? At a bachelor's level, at a 4-year level, have student loans. So it's okay, right? Don't feel like this anxiety around, I need to pay this back immediately. No, if you're paying it and they're happy and you're doing what you got to do to meet the requirements for them, it's okay. Is the financial burden worth attending a prestigious college, or should I focus? Wow, you guys are amazing. I wish I had these questions as a high school student. I definitely didn't. Okay, is the financial burden worth attending a prestigious college, or should I focus on a local college that my family and I can afford? Okay, so from where I'm sitting, it depends on what you want to do with your career. Right. So I recently spoke to an old professor of mine who said, Monica, if you are leaving New York State, do the fancy school. do the name brand, right? Because what are we paying for? We're basically paying for the name brand. The way we love the Yeezys, the way we love, I don't know, the Louis Vuitton, the Chanel, the whatever other fancy smancy stuff, that's what we're paying for. We're paying for the prestige, and that's okay. You know what? We deserve the prestige. If that's what we want to do, we deserve it. Because if we got in and we were strong enough candidates to make it through that application process, we're worthy of it, right? And so if you want the prestige, if you want the fancy schmancy, absolutely do it. I, in my opinion, think that if you're thinking really long term and you want to do a master's program and you want to do something after your bachelor's, I would save the fancy schmancy for my master's, right? That's my opinion, right? I would do my nice BA at a good CUNY, at a good SUNY, at a good, strong local school where I'm not going to be paying hundreds of thousands of dollars of loans, right? And then I would pay the hundreds and thousands of dollars of loans at a graduate school level, at a master's level, at a doctoral level, at a medical school level, at a law school level, right? But it's going to depend on what major you want to go into, on what your field needs, right? And so there's a lot to consider, but I also don't think there's a wrong answer, right? I don't think there's a wrong answer. Absolutely. Yes. Are there social media platforms where we can look to keep up with this org? Nirmala, would you like to type in the handles? We're going to share the handles in the chat, y'all. We're going to share the handles in the chat. We are on Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. Any more questions? Yeah, so at South Queens Women's March for Instagram and South Queens Women's March on Facebook.
Before we wrap up, I just want to give a really quick shout out to Cloyette for joining us. She's the founder of Guyanese Girls Rock, a really
I was
great.
trying to stay incognito, but you saw me. I was just trying to hop in and out.
Oh, thank you so much for stopping by and for,
Hi, thank you so much for having this class. We have a number of students here. I think 8 of them are here. So I just wanted to pop in and support them, so just to make sure that they're in this class because I stressed how important it was. So, I wanted to make sure they're in attendance and I see that they are. So I was just coming to check in and check out. But thank you so much for having it. This is very important.
Absolutely.
And feel free to let us know and for any future classes or program that you think our young women would benefit from. They're all high schoolers. So this was really great.
Yeah,
So thank you so
awesome.
much.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, we'll definitely
Hey,
keep you
Aminta.
posted with all of our upcoming workshops. But
Sure
thank you so much
thing.
for helping us get the word out. This is definitely resources that our community members need.